Imagine you're just sitting perfectly still at a red light. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do.
Right. Your foot is on the brake. You're safely behind the line.
Exactly. And then suddenly, this massive city bus pulls up dangerously close to your rear bumper. I mean, practically blocking out the sun in your rear view mirror.
That's just the worst feeling.
It really is. But then the driver behind you starts leaning on the horn, and the rider on a scooter next to them starts actually gesturing and banging on your car, like aggressively demanding that you run the red light.
Wow.
Yeah. The entire intersection is just staring at you, furious that you aren't breaking the law. So what do you do?
That is it's a terrifying scenario. And honestly, it immediately stops being a conversation about traffic management at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at that moment, you are right in the middle of a high-stakes psychological experiment.
Mm.
It's about what happens when the formal rules of the road completely detach from the physical, spatial reality of the road itself.
And the crazy thing is, that terrifying scenario isn't just a hypothetical. It is exactly what we are getting into today.
Right.
We are doing a deep dive into a highly detailed snapshot of urban chaos. It's chronicling an incident that actually occurred today, May 11th, 2026.
Fresh off the press.
Exactly. And it happened at a very specific, notoriously complex location, the Kumarichanta Junction down in Thiruvananthapuram.
It is such a fascinating microcosm,
Yeah.
I mean, this single intersection really highlights a massive global issue we are seeing in urban planning right now.
Oh, absolutely.
You're looking at this crazy collision point between deeply ingrained human survival habits,
Yeah.
brand new artificial intelligence enforcement, and just fundamentally flawed physical infrastructure.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because I'm wondering, how does a simple traffic signal, something designed for over a century to be the ultimate, universally understood tool of order?
Right. Red means stop, green means go.
Exactly. How does that transition into a psychological battleground?
Well, to get to the bottom of that, we first have to really understand the geography. Because, look, physical space dictates human behavior. Always.
Right.
You can paint all the bright white lines you want and install the most advanced signal lights money can buy. But if the physical environment doesn't allow humans to naturally obey those rules, the rules are just going to fail.
And looking at the layout of this specific junction, I mean, it is trying to do way too much all at once.
Oh, it really is.
Like, if you're coming from Kumarichanta, turning left takes you toward Milma. Turning right heads toward Inchakal, and going straight connects you to the Poonthura police station road.
A lot of flow.
Yeah, it's handling these massive conflicting streams of traffic simultaneously.
And, not to mention the infrastructure mix itself. We are dealing with two major national highway lanes intersecting with two local service roads.
Right, which is already a recipe for a headache.
Exactly. But spatially speaking, the real bottleneck, like the geometric villain of this whole scenario, is that Kumarichanta approach road.
Oh man, calling it narrow almost feels like a compliment.
Yeah, it's incredibly tight.
There is this bridge situated right near the signal on this approach road, and that bridge is just the ultimate choke point.
It really changes the math of the intersection.
It does, because if a large vehicle, specifically one of those massive state-run transit buses, the KSRTC buses.
Like the big ones.
Yeah, if one of those enters that section, the geometry of the road changes completely. It basically ceases to be a two-way street because the sheer mass of the bus takes up all the available space.
And even if there isn't a bus, the holding capacity there is shockingly small.
Wait, how small are we talking?
Under normal conditions, only about 3 average-sized cars can comfortably queue up between that bridge and the traffic signal.
Just 3 cars?
Just 3 cars.
Yeah.
For a major urban arterial junction, that is an impossibly compressed holding area.
That is insane. But we also have to layer in the human element here, which makes this entire spatial puzzle incredibly precarious.
The fish market, right?
Yes. There is an informal, entirely unregulated fish market operating right along the shoulder of this road.
And that changes the dynamic entirely. Because you have these fisherwomen, many of them elderly, sitting continuously along the unpaved edges.
Just right there on the dirt.
Right there. And they are set up right up to the signal itself. And there are absolutely no protective barriers, no raised sidewalks,
Nothing to separate them from the traffic.
no pedestrian safety arrangements whatsoever separating them from the moving vehicles.
Which means lateral movement for a driver is literally zero.
Exactly zero.
If you are in a car and you need to scoot even a few inches to the left to avoid, say, a massive bus coming up on your right, You simply can't.
Because there are human beings sitting right there.
Exactly. But to truly understand why this intersection operates on the brink of madness, we have to look at what happened here over the last year.
The signal blackout.
Right. Because of elevated highway construction, the traffic signals at this junction were completely inactive, like a total blackout for nearly 12 months.
I mean, just think about that. For an entire year, every driver going through that junction had to navigate this multi-directional, incredibly tight space with zero managed flow.
Wait, I need to pause you there. I am trying to picture this in my head.
Sure.
You have a choke point that barely holds 3 cars. You have massive transit buses. You have people sitting right on the shoulder in 4 different directions of traffic.
Yep.
Wouldn't a complete signal blackout just result in permanent 24/7 gridlock? Like, how did cars move at all without just smashing into each other?
It's a great question. And it's because humans possess this incredible capacity for what we can call urban survival behavior.
Urban survival behavior.
Yeah. When a formal top-down system breaks down, informal organic rules instantly take over. Drivers learn to communicate through, like, micro-movements.
Right. Nudging forward.
Exactly. A flash of the headlights, eye contact, the slow inching forward to claim just an inch of space. It relies on a shared collective understanding of momentum.
Wow. So it's basically organized chaos.
Highly stressful, yeah. But it flows because everyone entering the intersection expects the chaos, and they actively negotiate it.
So they basically develop a localized language of movement, like a hyper-aware dance.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. And, that brings us to the core problem. The true danger in urban planning isn't always the chaos itself.
It's not.
No, the danger is clamping a rigid valve onto a high-pressure water pipe that is adapted to having a dozen leaks.
Oh, I see what you mean.
When you suddenly turn those traffic signals back on after a year, you are imposing an inflexible binary system onto a living, breathing ecosystem that has spent 365 days evolving to completely ignore rigidity.
The pressure doesn't just disappear.
Exactly, it just violently bursts out somewhere else.
Which brings us perfectly to the climax of our deep dive today, because the physical constraints explain the tension. But a specific incident documented at exactly 14.46 today perfectly illustrates what happens when that high-pressure valve snaps.
The 14.46 incident?
Yeah.
Yeah, the timeline of this is just a textbook example of collective psychology, overwhelming individual logic.
So let's lay out the geometry of this exact moment for everyone listening. It is 14.46. A driver on the Kumarichanta approach road stops at the freshly reactivated red light.
Okay.
And crucially, they intentionally leave a buffer of empty space ahead of their front bumper. They do not pull all the way up to the stop line because they are trained to protect the elderly fisherwomen seated right on the edge of the road.
Which is a completely rational safety-first decision. I mean, they are following the law and prioritizing human life.
Totally. So behind this driver, an auto rickshaw and a scooter pull up and stop. So there's a neat legal queue of 3 vehicles.
Right, filling the tiny capacity of that road.
Exactly. But then the catalyst arrives. A massive state transit bus registration, KL149532, comes up from behind. The signal is still completely red, but the bus doesn't stop. It actually attempts to overtake the waiting vehicles. It's described in the source as looking like a massive ship trying to force itself through an impossibly narrow canal.
Which is just a classic assertion of spatial dominance.
Spatial dominance.
Yeah. The bus driver knows the physical space cannot accommodate the maneuver, but they also know their vehicle is the largest object in the environment.
They're throwing your weight around.
Exactly. They're using their mass to force the smaller vehicles to yield completely, regardless of what the traffic light says.
The terrifying part is the sweeping parabolic curve the bus has to take just to get around them. The driver sitting at the red light is literally watching the front left tire of this enormous bus swing perilously close to their car's hood.
And as we established, that driver is physically trapped.
Right. Move left, and you run over vulnerable pedestrians. Stay put, and a wall of metal might crush your right fender.
And at this exact second, the event transitions from a dangerous driving maneuver into a bizarre psychological phenomenon.
Yes. Because the pressure doesn't just come from the bus. The rider on the scooter and the driver of the auto rickshaw, who are stopped behind the lead car, they start turning on the lead driver.
One following the rules.
Exactly. They start gesturing wildly. They physically start tapping on the lead car. These strangers are actively demanding that the lead driver run the red light and move into the intersection.
They were essentially trying to bully the driver into breaking the law to relieve the spatial tension.
I cannot wrap my head around that crowd mentality. I mean, why does it shift so aggressively against the person following the rules? These are strangers.
Yeah.
Why do the people in the auto and the scooter side with the massive bus that is actively endangering all of them?
Well, it comes down to the psychology of collective expectation and the diffusion of responsibility.
How so?
The people on the scooter and in the auto aren't consciously thinking, I support this bus breaking the law. What they are feeling is the physical threat of momentum. The bus represents this irresistible moving force. The legally stopped car in front represents an immovable object.
So they just want to eliminate the object in the way.
The crowd instinctively wants the tension released. And because they are shielded by the anonymity of being in traffic, they project all of their anxiety onto the one person who has the power to pull the plug and release the pressure.
The driver in the front.
Exactly.
They don't care about the rules at that point. They just want the threat of being crushed to go away.
Right.
But the wild thing is, the lead driver actually holds their ground.
Wow.
Yeah, they refuse to break the law. They absolutely refuse to endanger the fisherwomen. For 29 agonizing seconds, they just sit there absorbing the rage of the crowd and the physical threat of the bus.
That takes some serious nerve.
It really does. And they wait until exactly 14.46.29 when the light finally turns green and they can legally move.
We also have to factor in the specific timing of these new signals to understand why the crowd was so volatile in that moment.
What do you mean?
Well, the newly programmed lights are holding a red signal for roughly 90 seconds, and they're only giving a green light for about 60 seconds.
A 90-second red light on a road that only holds 3 cars. That is an eternity.
It is a massive mismatch between timing and capacity.
I can imagine.
When you take severe space constraints, add a driver base that has spent a year freely flowing through the junction, and suddenly you mandate a 90-second wait.
People are going to lose it.
The frustration boils over almost instantly. It creates this highly dangerous unofficial rule of the road.
And that unofficial rule is essentially red means go if enough people pressure you. Like the crowd's anxiety actually overwrites the legal authority of the traffic light.
Precisely. But here is the massive catch, the ultimate paradox of this entire situation.
Okay, lay it on me.
The crowd behind you is frantically pressuring you to run that red light, right?
Right.
But they are absolutely not the ones who are going to face the consequences when the new eye in the sky catches you doing it.
Oh, this is where we get into the tech side of this disaster. Because we aren't just talking about a basic light bulb on a pole here.
Not at all.
The authorities didn't just turn the old lights back on.
Far from it. They upgraded the junction with a highly sophisticated enforcement system.
Right. The new signals are equipped with AI-assisted surveillance and PTZ cameras.
Which stands for pan-tilt-zoom, for anyone wondering.
Good to know. And these aren't human traffic cops, right? Like, a cop could look at the situation and say, oh, I see, a bus was about to crush that car, so they had to inch forward.
A human would understand the context.
Exactly. But these cameras are smart, they are automated, and they possess exactly 0 empathy.
0. They are programmed for strict binary outcomes.
Binary meaning just yes or no.
Exactly. You're either stationary behind the designated white line while the light is red, or you are in violation of the law. There is no gray area in the algorithm's code.
And the legal penalties attached to that algorithm under the Motor Vehicles Act of 2019 are incredibly severe. I mean, we are not talking about a little slap on the wrist here.
No, not at all.
Jumping a signal carries fines ranging from 1,000 rupees all the way up to 5,000 rupees. And it can even lead to the immediate suspension of your driving license.
And, the delivery mechanism is entirely automated, too. The system generates e-challens.
Like digital tickets.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Instant digital traffic tickets that are sent straight to your phone or your mailbox.
Wow. And in severe cases, multiple violations can even lead to imprisonment.
It's serious business.
But the most terrifying detail about how these specific cameras operate, the thing that just blows my mind, you don't even have to drive through the intersection to trigger them.
Really?
Yeah. Simply crossing the stop line with your front bumper while the light is red is flagged by the AI as a violation.
So if you inch forward, just to give that massive bus 2 extra inches of turning radius so it doesn't scrape your car.
Flash, you've just committed a heavily fined offense.
That is just wild.
Right, and this is the core paradox that makes this deep dive so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
The guy tapping on the window, gesturing for the driver to move, is literally demanding that a complete stranger trigger an AI camera, get their license suspended, and get hit with a 5,000 rupee digital ticket, all so the crowd can alleviate their own spatial anxiety.
It's absurd.
Drivers are actively bullying each other into committing AI-enforced crimes at an intersection specifically redesigned for automated punishment.
Which really forces us to ask a critical question about modern city planning.
Which is?
Is pouring millions into high-tech automated enforcement completely useless or even actively harmful if the local driving culture and the physical road space haven't actually caught up to the technology?
It definitely seems like it. I mean, it's like buying a state-of-the-art $1,000 security system and installing it on a canvas tent.
That's a perfect analogy.
The hardware is incredible, but the foundation it sits on is completely fundamentally incompatible.
That is the absolute crux of the issue. You cannot solve a deeply rooted behavioral and spatial problem purely by dropping a technological hammer on it.
Right.
The AI cameras at Kumarichanta are flawless. They are executing their programming perfectly, but they are being layered on top of that urban survival behavior we talked about earlier.
And the transition planning was just virtually non-existent.
Right.
You have a road that geometrically fails the second a transit bus enters it. You have an unregulated market-placing vulnerable human beings inches from vehicle tires. And you have a driving populace traumatized by a year of lawless, every man for himself navigation.
It's a perfect storm.
Slapping an unblinking algorithmic camera on top of that mess doesn't create order. It just monetizes the chaos. It actively punishes drivers for being trapped in a poorly engineered space.
So if AI enforcement isn't the magic bullet here, what does a junction like this actually require to function safely? I mean, how do we bridge this massive disconnect?
Well, looking at the breakdown of the root causes in the source material, it's pretty clear that we are witnessing a multi-front clash.
Okay, break it down.
It's old, survival-based traffic habits crashing headfirst into unforgiving new enforcement systems. And it's fundamentally broken physical road planning clashing with deep-seated human impatience.
So the solutions really have to address the physical reality of the space before the technology can be effective.
Exactly. That means comprehensive traffic engineering designed specifically to handle that bridge bottleneck.
Right, fix the geometry first.
It also urgently requires safe, formalized vendor relocation planning. You cannot have elderly women sitting inches from heavy traffic relying on an informal market for their livelihood.
Obviously not. They need a designated protected space that doesn't compromise their safety or the road's lateral capacity.
We also need strict bus movement regulation.
Oh, absolutely.
If a single transit bus turns a two-way street into a one-way street, the routing is fundamentally broken.
Those larger vehicles might need entirely different routing paths, or at least, restricted timings for when they're allowed to pass through the bottleneck.
And you need massive public awareness campaigns. You can't just flip a switch after a year of darkness and expect people to seamlessly transition back to rigid rules.
Right, there has to be an adjustment period.
But to me, the absolute linchpin to fixing this specific junction is realistic synchronization.
The timing of the lights.
Exactly. Slapping a rigid 90-second red light on a tiny stretch of road that only holds 3 cars is a recipe for guaranteed dysfunction.
It just builds pressure way too fast.
It does. It's almost begging the crowd to reach a boiling point and break the law. You have to time the lights to match the actual physical reality of the road's clearing capacity. If it only holds 3 cars, the light needs to cycle much faster to keep the pressure low.
Yeah, until those physical and behavioral root causes are addressed, the AI technology is really just a digital Band-Aid on a broken bone.
A very expensive Band-Aid.
True. And, the reality of the intersection today is perfectly captured by the new, unofficial traffic philosophy taking hold among the drivers down there.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Right now, at Kumarichanta, the unspoken rule is red means move if pressured enough. Green means finally legal.
Green means finally legal. Wow. That perfectly captures the sheer anxiety of sitting in that driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, just waiting for the algorithm to finally give you permission to escape the pressure of the crowd behind you.
It really does.
So what does this all mean for you listening? I mean, why does a single traffic jam in Thiruvananthapuram matter to how we think about the future?
Well, it is a powerful reminder that urban infrastructure isn't just about pouring asphalt and mounting high-tech cameras.
Right.
It is fundamentally an exercise in managing human psychology.
Yeah.
It's about understanding spatial constraints, acknowledging how people actually live and work in an area,
Right.
and predicting how crowds will behave when systems fail them.
Technology should adapt to the human environment, not force the human environment into impossible, rigid boxes.
Exactly.
And that actually leaves us with a really provocative thought to mull over as we wrap up today. We've spent this entire time talking about how human drivers, with all our capacity for empathy, fear, spatial awareness, and vulnerability to peer pressure, handle the intense stress of an illogical intersection.
Right. We adapt, for better or worse.
But what happens to this exact same scenario 10 years from now when fully autonomous vehicles enter the mix?
Oh, wow. Now, that is a fascinating thought experiment.
Think about the programming. An autonomous vehicle is programmed by developers to rigidly, unfailingly obey the law.
It has to be.
It communicates directly with the AI signals. It will not inch forward to give a bus room if it means crossing a white line.
Never.
It will absolutely not respond to a crowd of people tapping on its bumper or blaring their horns. It has zero spatial anxiety.
It literally cannot be bullied.
Exactly. So what happens when a rigidly rule-bound computer has to navigate Kumarichanta Junction? Who wins a standoff between an unyielding algorithmic car that refuses to break a red light and an impatient human collective that operates on the unofficial red means move if pressured rule?
Honestly, if the physical infrastructure remains the same, a vehicle that strictly follows the rules in an environment that requires breaking them to survive will just cause a total system failure. You'd see gridlock unlike anything we've experienced yet.
It definitely makes you think differently the next time you're sitting at a red light, perfectly following the rules, and the driver behind you suddenly leans on the horn. Are they just being impatient, or are they responding to a hidden geometry and pressure in the intersection that you just can't see yet?
Something to think about next time you hit the brakes.
Definitely. Well, that's all for today's deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.